I can't carry on. I can't do this anymore. I don't recognise myself in the mirror. I love you, but I've been having these thoughts. I just can't carry on. Tell the boys that I love them. I love you. I'm so sorry. A story where the truth lies somewhere within it. A story where it's anyone's guess whose version is true. And a story where 4 people's lives will never be the same again. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Alright, so I've got quite the mysterious and intriguing tale to tell. But first of all, before I get there, let me just do some shout outs and then we will get on. Okay, first shout out to Rachel Chitty. Excellent. Chitty, as in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Brilliant. Hello Rachel, thank you for your email. I really appreciated it. Hello Kristen on Instagram. Name Kristen Lee, I think. So hello Kristen. Roxanne Jones, you beautiful lady. Thank you for getting in touch. Sorry calling you beautiful lady, it sounded creepy, didn't mean that. I just, when you sent me a message, I clicked into your Instagram, which I'm now realising makes it sound even more creepy, but yeah, hello, how you doing? Paula Zales. Now Paula is listening to 2 to 3 episodes a day to catch up with the podcast. Paula, listen, that is a lot of my annoying voice in your ears. So, give yourself a break. But seriously, thank you. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. Now, this next one. Okay, I had to ask for help because, I saw the name written down and I thought, how in the hell do I say this one? So I asked this lady to send me her name. So I'll have her say it first, and then I will give it a bash.
Irene Abalzat.
So, hello to Irene Abersath. Irene Abersath. I really hope I got that right. Pretty sure I did. Pretty sure I nailed that there, actually. Yeah, I think that's it. So, hello. How you doing? Danielle Havens. Hello to you. Hello, Danielle. And finally, here's another one that I'm struggling with. Crystal. Now, Crystal, I'm struggling with your surname. But you know who you are. You're very active in the Facebook group. You're great. You post loads of brilliant things and make me laugh. But I think your surname is Mizimer. Oh, I'm not really sure how to say it. Anyway, we're just going to go with Crystal because you know who you are. So hello to you all. So thanks for getting in touch. Alright, shout out's done. Alright, this story, well, I'll tell you this straight away. First thing I had to do with this story when I had it is I've had to, for the purposes of telling the story, I've had to change the names of some of the people in the story. Not everyone, but I've had to change the names of a couple of people. And that's because this story, when it unfolds, you'll start to hear the kind of people that are involved in it. And other podcasts, other investigative journalists, other people have run into problems by retelling this story. And I don't really want to run into issues. But it's my legal loophole. What the hell's a loophole? Loophole is that if I change the names, it's fine. So nothing about the story is different. The story, as you hear it, is exactly what happened. But I've just changed the names. Because, as Mary J. Blige once said in that song, I don't need no drama, or whatever she sang, something like that. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. Julia and Mike are a young couple. In fact, Mike is 20 years old and Julia is 19. Right, so you'll know that a while ago, if you've been listening to the podcast, I talked about phrases that I absolutely hate. Well, here we go. I've got another one for you. A phrase that describes Julia and Mike is high school sweethearts. Blech. Oh, I hate it. I hate it. What a bloody annoying phrase. Anyway, that aside. They grew up together in Pennsylvania, USA. So, at the time that our story takes place, it's 2015, and they're living in a house together in Pennsylvania. So, I'll give you just a little visual of what they look like, because, sometimes it's nice to imagine. So, Julia, we're talking like very pretty, she's blonde, she's slim. Now, she's 19, but I swear to God, she looks way younger than 19. I mean, I'm rubbish, terrible at guessing ages, but I'd say she looks about 16. Honestly, she doesn't look 19. So that's Julia. And Mike, well, he's, yes, a fairly attractive looking guy. He's got dark hair and he's got quite a built body, if you know what I mean, like quite a solid built body. He is 20 years old and again, he looks way younger than 20. Honestly, the two of them together, they look like teenagers in love. They don't look like they're 19 and 20 years old. So, Julia and Mike, they have 2 kids. They have a 2-year-old and a baby, and both of them are boys. Now, I did some quick maths. And when I say quick, I mean really quick maths. But it would seem to me that if Julia is 19 and she has a 2-year-old and a baby, I reckon that she must have fallen pregnant at about 16, and that's when they had their first child. So that seems about right to me. So that's where they're at. Okay, that's what their life is at the moment. I mean, it's a lot for them. It's a lot. 2 kids is a lot for anyone, but it's a lot for them. They've got a 2-year-old, they've got a baby, and they're both still quite young. So what do they do for an income, for money? Well, here is where our story starts to get intriguing. Julia has been at home for a few years, raising her sons, but she has just gotten a job working in a doctor's office. Now, she hasn't started this job yet, but she's excited to get this started. And Mike is a police officer. He works in the local area. Mike comes from a long line of police officers in his family. His father, a police officer, his uncle, the county sheriff. Just remember that, okay? His uncle is the county sheriff. I am heavily winking at you down the microphone as I say that. So, right, here is where we find ourselves. It's a Thursday evening and it's 2015. Julia, Mike, and the two kids are at home. Now, what's happening is Julia is trying on some new clothes in her bedroom. So she's taking things in and out of the closet. She's trying things on for when she starts her new job. So, so she's matching skirts with tops. She's trying some trousers. She's putting on blazers. She's seeing what she might wear as her work uniform. Now, next door to her bedroom, her and Mike's bedroom, the two kids are asleep. And it's about 8 o'clock at night. So where is Mike? Well, he is in the shower. He is in the shower lathering up good styly. He's shampooing his hair, singing a song, no doubt. Now, there is a terrible atmosphere in the house. A really, really unpleasant atmosphere. And the reason for that is that Julia and Mike have had a huge argument that day, earlier on that day, and the atmosphere from that argument is lingering. Okay, so why are they arguing? Well, general stress. The fights that couples have over small things was the start of it. But one thing majorly caused them to argue on that day, and that is that Julie accused her husband of having an affair earlier in the day. In the really short time that they've been married, police officer Mike, he hasn't been completely faithful. Julia knows about these other girls, other women that he's been seeing, and on this particular day, she confronts him because she thinks that there's another girlfriend that he has hiding somewhere, and he's up to his old tricks. There is a real history here of Mike having sexy times with other women. So, this couple, just to give you this picture, this couple who were so madly in love as teenagers, now just find themselves fighting continually. They're just arguing all of the time. They're arguing in public. They're shouting at each other in the house continually. People are seeing them fight in the street. It's got to the point where, they're basically just arguing all the time. Now, I'm going to introduce into the story their neighbour, because she's going to become very important later on. So she's a woman in her early 60s who she's lived on the street that they've moved into for years. She's lived there a long, long time. And later on in their story, she will say this. When they moved here, they were so happy and so full of life. I got to know Julia quite well, and then I started to see a change. She says, I saw her change from a happy young girl into a miserable person. She says, I could hear them fighting all the time. shouting, calling each other names. She says, I saw Julia crying a lot. They went from a happy couple to a very unhappy couple quickly. Now just remember the neighbour. Store her in the back of your brain. Okay? Just remember her. So, back to this evening in question, this particular evening. So, they've had this argument earlier in the day. Jessica's in the bedroom, Mike's in the shower, the two kids are in their room going to sleep. And as Mike is in the shower, Julia sneaks quietly into the bathroom. He has no idea that she's there. And she pulls back the shower curtain and he's using his phone in the shower. Now, I find this bit of the story a little bit odd because unless he's got some supersonic, ultra futuristic phone that can handle water, I'm not sure how he's using his phone in the shower. But, well, I mean, I suppose when I thought about it, I was like, well, he's not standing under the shower using it. I guess what he's doing is he's standing out of the water using his phone. Do people use their phones in the shower? I don't know. I find that really, really odd. But anyway, this is what he's doing. And Julia, she starts up the argument from earlier once more. She says, I know what you're up to. I know that you're in this shower and you are texting another woman in secret. You're sending pictures of yourself and the whole thing just becomes another full-blown screaming and shouting match between the two of them. A horrible, horrible argument where they're both just screaming and shouting at each other. I mean, thinking about this, I just keep imagining him naked. And hang on, I don't mean I keep thinking. Let me rephrase that statement. I don't mean I keep imagining him naked. What I mean is, but like, have you ever had an argument with someone when you've been naked? It's the weirdest thing. It's the strangest thing. Because you've got all this kind of like passion and you feel like you want to be really vocal and you want to say things, but you're completely vulnerable at the same time because you're in the scud. Basically, you've got no clothes on. So it's weird. So I'm just imagining him like standing there with like no clothes on and she's like shouting at him as he's in the shower. Yeah. Okay. So if we go back a little bit earlier into that day, well, there's something else that has upset Julia and it's been really playing on her mind. Julia keeps a journal in the house, a blue notebook. And in this notebook, she keeps detailed notes of her relationship with Mike and their arguments and his infidelities. She keeps all of this in a notebook. Now, is that an odd thing to keep? Well, not for Julia, because you see, what she wants is a divorce. She wants to get away from Mike. And in this journal, in this notebook, is all of the essential evidence that she can present to a divorce lawyer. She states in this notebook that she wants to divorce him and take the two kids away. Now, like anyone would with such a notebook, Julia has it very, very well hidden. I mean, it's a private document. It's her private document. And only really she knows where it is. And where she stores it is in a cupboard that she knows Mike never goes anywhere near in the bedroom, and she's stored it way at the bottom, and she's covered it in a pile of clothes. But on this day I'm talking about, the notebook that's been so well hidden is lying out on top of a pile of clothes, and there have been 8 pages ripped out. Pages of a notebook containing her reasons for wanting to divorce Mike, ripped out, gone. Interesting. Julia never confronts Mike about the pages ripped out of the notebook, but it's clearly been left for Julia to see that someone else knows the notebook exists. So this argument they've had earlier in the day, where Julia has said to him, I know you've got a new girlfriend, I know that's who you're texting, you're being really secretive. Was she right? Yes, she was 100% right. Mike had another girlfriend on the side that he had been texting back and forth daily, he'd been meeting with, he'd been having sex with her. So Julia was 100% right that her husband was seeing someone else. Now, after the argument in the shower incident, Mike decides he's going to make a call to police. Now, he is a police officer himself, but he's going to make a call to police, and he's going to report Julia for domestic violence. He says she was poking him in the chest while they argued, and he wants police to visit the house and to calm her down. Julia doesn't know this call has been made to police. Once he is dressed from the shower and is downstairs, Julia comes down to him and she says, okay, we've run out of baby formula and we need to go out and get some. So can we go to Walmart? Please, can we go to Walmart and get some baby formula? By this point, it's about 10 o'clock at night. So the shower argument happened around 8 o'clock. It's now 10 o'clock and she's like, we need to go to Walmart and get some baby formula. So they go, but the argument between them is still continuing. They're still shouting at each other. And the neighbour that I mentioned earlier, she's watching them from their window as they get into the car and they head to Walmart at 10 o'clock at night. So she's heard all of the shouting earlier on that day, and here they are, they're shouting as they get into the car. So they get to Walmart and another argument breaks out between them. It's really the same argument from earlier. They're just continuing this exact same fight. And as they're leaving, Julia says she doesn't want to go home with Mike. She wants to make her own way home. She's done with him for the day. She's done with him. She doesn't want to go home with him. She'll just make her own way home. Now he says at this point that they walk out to the car park together. The argument continues, and that's when Julia storms back into the shop saying, no, I'll find my own way home. But here's where it gets hazy and the story begins to become a little confused. CCTV footage sees them both arriving, as I said, but then Mike says they left the shop together. They argued in the car park, but the CCTV footage doesn't show Julia coming back out of the shop. It's Mike on his own. So the whole thing about, did they leave the shop together? Did they not? Where did the argument happen when she said, I'll go home on my own? That all becomes a little bit hazy, a little bit murky, a little bit weird. Anyway, bottom line of it is, He says, I left Walmart alone and Julia was still there. What's incredibly frustrating is in every version of this story that I've read, nobody has a clear answer on where the two kids were at this time. Now, I'm assuming they're with their mum. I'm assuming they're with Julia. Otherwise, they would have gone to Walmart and left a baby and a 2-year-old in the house. And I don't think they would have done that. I don't think that's what happened. So I have to assume that they're with Julia. But anyway, that's just one of these other hazy parts of the story. And get ready for hazy parts, because it all becomes just a little bit whose version is the truth. What happened in the remainder of that evening is where the real, proper mystery of this story lies. When Mike gets home, he calls one of his police friends and he says, hey, are you about? Are you hanging about? And his friend says, yeah, I am. And Mike says, do you fancy getting some late night food? I'm hungry. And his friend says, yeah, okay. I'll meet you at the pancake place nearby. So Mike, he heads out to the pancake place. Mike says by this time, Julia is home from Walmart and she's upstairs and that the two boys are asleep. Now, throughout this evening, Mike's phone has been the hotline. He's had nearly 100 text messages from his secret girlfriend, the one that Julia suspects, the one that's caused these huge arguments on that day. 100 text messages. Man, that is a lot of bloody text admin, isn't it? That is a lot of admin in your life. Here he is. Mike is eating pancakes with his friend, and it's now 1 a.m. and he gets another text. He thinks, oh well, this is going to be my secret lover, but it's not. It's Julia. It's from his wife and it says this: I can't carry on like this. Take care of the boys. Tell them daily that I love them. I have been suffering for too long now. No one seems to see my pain. I don't know myself anymore, and this is not the first time I have thought of suicide. I love you and the boys. Julia. So when Mike gets this text, he immediately acts on it. So although he himself is a police officer, he's off duty, and he makes a call asking for a police car to go to his house. He says, my wife is having suicidal thoughts. And the 911 operator asks, are there any weapons in the house? And he says, yes, my service gun. So the gun that he's been issued on day one of becoming a police officer, it's in the house. Mike leaves the pancake place and he races to his home, not sure what he's going to find. Is Julia okay? Are his sons okay? So he arrives at his home now. He waits outside and he doesn't go in. He stands instead in the garden of the house. And it's as he's waiting, he hears 2 gunshots go off inside. Now, as he's there and he's waiting and he's freaking out, that's when a team of police officers and ambulance, they arrive on the scene. An ambulance is there because they suspect from his call that Julia might need some medical assistance on the scene, or that her two sons might need medical assistance. When they arrive, Mike is visibly, clearly upset, and he says to them, "I heard 2 shots being fired inside just a minute ago. I don't want to go in and look." He says, "I think she's done something terrible." Officers, they say, "Okay, stay out here, we will go in and we will look." So just before I tell you what they find inside the house, let's recap this bizarre night very quickly. So firstly, they've argued during the day. Then there is the argument in the shower. Julia is upset with Mike. Then there's Mike calling the police to say that she is being violent and accusing her of domestic abuse. Then they go to Walmart. There's more arguing. Mike says, "I left her, she found her own way home," but the CCTV footage is confusing. Then Mike goes out for pancakes. Then Julia texts him and says, "I'm having suicidal thoughts, please take care of the boys." And now it's 1 a.m. and Mike is outside of his own house, and police and paramedics are racing into the house. When they get in there, they check downstairs and there's nothing. They head upstairs, they check the hall, nothing. They go into the bathroom, nothing. Police go into Julia and Mike's bedroom and they realise that one of the closets is locked. Both officers, they look at each other and realise they're going to have to head for that locked closet. And they're going to have to kick the door down to find out what's inside. And that is exactly what they do. When they kick the door down, they find the body of Julia lying on the floor of the closet. Her blonde hair is matted with blood. Her head rests on a pillow which is soaked in blood. And under her body is Mike's police gun. Major panic erupts and paramedics enter the closet and they move Julia's body out into the hallway where there is more space. Immediately, work begins to determine if she's dead, if she's alive, and just what has happened here. What has happened? Very quickly, it's decided that she has a gunshot wound to the side of her head. However, she is breathing. She is breathing, which is good. An officer runs down to tell Mike, who's outside the house, that Jessica is breathing. Another officer goes to check on the boys, and the baby is asleep. And the 2-year-old is crying because of all the noise that's going on in the house. However, the 2 kids are absolutely fine. Right, paramedics agree they need to get Julia to a hospital as soon as possible if she's going to survive. And as she's brought downstairs in a stretcher into an ambulance, Mike is crying and saying, "If only I'd been here earlier, I could have stopped her trying to kill herself. Why did she do this? He's shouting at the top of his voice. I loved her, she loved me, and she loved our boys. Why would she shoot herself in the head? Now, obviously, as you can imagine, this causes quite the commotion. People are gathering round the house, including the neighbour who I mentioned earlier, and everyone is, well, yeah, basically just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on? What the hell's actually happening? Now, the next person to arrive into the madness is Mike's uncle. Remember I told you earlier, Mike's uncle was the county sheriff. So, well, he arrives in two sort of capacities, I guess, because, you know, he's the county sheriff, but also he's Mike's uncle, and, well, he knows Julia, he knows the family really well, so he's there with that sort of dual thing going on, wearing two hats. Once he has seen Julia, he puts in a phone call to the central police system, and he asks that Julia's family be notified that she has died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. What now? She's not dead. Why, oh fucking why is he having her parents informed that she's dead? We've just heard it from the paramedics. She's breathing. Why is Mike's uncle saying, tell everyone she's dead from a gunshot wound in the head, which she did to herself? What the fuck? What? This is just one, again, of the many bizarre, hazy parts of this story. So, the not dead, although the sheriff says you are, Julia, is taken to the hospital. She is put into a coma, whilst doctors can try to assess what the hell is actually going on. Back at home, the family, extended family, they arrive to take the two young kids away, and Mike has now got to go and talk to police. I mean, that is fucking awful for Julia's family, isn't it? They think their daughter is dead. She's not. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. So just to add to the mess, right, because it's not messy enough, the police start looking at the closet that she was found in, and they discover that there are 2 bullet marks, but the positioning of them is very, very odd. One is in the ceiling, and one is at a really weird angle on the wall, and they start going, oh, hang on, how the hell did she angle a gun to get a shot up there? That doesn't make any sense. And they start trying to map it out, and they're going, well, no, it doesn't make any sense, because if she shot that gun, that wouldn't have gone into the ceiling. Why is that mark over there? It's not adding up. It's just not adding up. I'm imagining them in that moment, in police dramas, right, where I love this, when people start, detectives are oh, I'm going to solve this case, and they start I'm going to reenact it, I'm going to walk through it, blah, you would have to be at this angle of the room to shoot that. I would be so fucking good at that. Do you know what I'm telling you? That's what my life's work should be. I should be one of those people who goes into a crime scene and I'm like, right, everyone, let's reenact the crime scene and figure it out from here. But that's kind of what I'm imagining that they're doing at that moment. But essentially, jokes aside, it is actually what they're doing, because they're going, something in this just doesn't add up. Something is not right. Now, as well as this, they're also looking right at the much, much bigger, wider question, which I'm pretty sure you eagle-eared listeners are also thinking about. This scene, this supposed suicide, would suggest that Jessica went into the closet, fired 2 shots, neither of which match her head wound. Anyway, fired 2 shots, then slumped down perfectly into position with a pillow under her head, and yet somehow the gun ended up under her body. Now, they're looking at it and they're going, well, there's a bit of like, okay, maybe the circumstances might add up, but there's also a large, heavy amount of, something doesn't look right here. Something does not look right. Julia's in hospital. Doctors are dealing with her. Mike's at the police station. Mike's being interviewed and he's asked a variety of questions. And this one's really interesting. They say, so Mike, you say that at 1 a.m. when you raced back from the pancake place, you're saying that from outside of your house you heard 2 gunshots. And he says, yes, that's exactly what I heard. And they say, well, here's the thing. We spoke to your neighbour. She heard 1 gunshot. She is 100% sure that it was 1 gunshot, but it wasn't at 1 a.m. It was at 11 p.m. The time that you were home with Julia after that whole Walmart incident. Your neighbour is absolutely convinced there was 1 shot that she heard at 11 o'clock when you were in the house. He says, no, that's ridiculous. There was no 11 p.m. gunshot. And detectives say, okay, but your neighbour is really sure about it. Then next they say to Mike, so the clothing that you're wearing now, is that the clothing you've been wearing all evening? And he says, yes, absolutely. I haven't changed. He says, when I got out of the shower earlier on, once our argument in the shower had happened, I came out and I put on these clothes. And detectives say, well, okay, here's the thing. In the CCTV footage from Walmart, you're wearing something different. So you've had a change of clothing at some point this evening, Mike, haven't you? And he says, oh, well, if I have changed clothing, I've not remembered that I've done it. Very quickly they pull up Mike's phone activity, and remember I'd said there were over 100 texts to his secret girlfriend. Well, guess when some of those were sent? Some of them were sent to his secret lover after Julia, I'm going to commit suicide text message. So let's just look at that, okay? So your wife who is at home with your 2 kids sends you a message that says, I can't carry on, I can't do this anymore, I love you, tell the boys I love them, it's not the first time I've had suicidal thoughts. And you're so panicked about it that what you do is you text your secret girlfriend. Odd. Very odd. Okay. So by now, and in the way that I'm presenting this information, you're probably thinking, it's clear. Mike has definitely been involved here. Something is wrong. Something is definitely wrong with Mike and Julia and the supposed suicide in the closet. Well, let's just kick that up a level. Let me take you to an even weirder place. At the hospital, doctors are working on Jessica, and the first thing that they do is they shave her head so that they can get to work, which I think is what they do if you've had a really terrible head injury. So they do that, and they're thinking, okay, right, so we can see where the entry wound for the bullet was, but let's find the exit wound. Only an exit wound doesn't exist. Okay, why? Well, Julia doesn't have a bullet wound in her head. Instead, she has a large wound where it would appear that she has suffered head trauma from a heavy, blunt instrument. So there's no gun involved here. Instead, what's happened is Julia has had a massive thump to the side of the head with a big, heavy object. By now, her parents have arrived at the hospital. They're informed that she's actually alive. And again, I mean, just horrific for them. Just terrible. So police they're puzzling over this whole entire thing. Now that they know she didn't shoot herself, they're like, okay, are we meant to think that she went into the closet, bashed herself really hard on the head, and then fell down perfectly on a pillow? What the fuck is going on? Now, I said that there were hazy and confusing elements to this story. Here's another one. Throw this in. When Julia's hands are tested in the hospital, there is gun residue on her hands, suggesting that at some point she had actually held or touched a gun. So what is happening? Why is there gunshot residue on her hands, but it's not a gunshot wound to the head? This is very weird. Mike's uncle, the sheriff, he plays a really large part in the case in the next few days when Mike is in and out of questioning with police. The neighbour gets spoken to again. The family gets spoken to, and they're asked, has she ever indicated that she might be thinking about suicide? And they say, no way. They say she absolutely lived for her two boys. She loved them to bits. There's no chance she was thinking about suicide. So it's a real puzzle. It's a real puzzle, and nobody can put all the bits together. After 3 weeks in a coma, Julia wakes up. So, police are thinking, brilliant. Fucking brilliant. This is where the jigsaw pieces are going to fall into place. But no luck. She can't remember anything from the events of that night. The head injury has made Julia's memory cloudy, hazy. She can't really remember anything beyond the argument in the shower. This is interesting. They show her the text message that she supposedly sent. The I'm going to commit suicide one. And she says, bullshit. She says, I've never had suicidal thoughts. I've never wanted to kill myself. She said, yeah, I want to get away from my husband. I want to take the kids and I want to start a life again. But no, I would never have sent that text message. She also adds this, which I love. In a sassy way, she adds, and also I would never have written in that text message, I love you, to Mike. She says, because I don't. Now we've got the confusing, she's saying, that text did not come from me. I didn't write that. Now 2 weeks after she is out of the coma and police are still scratching their heads, Julia finds out that Mike has applied for custody of both children. And he's citing the reason as his suicidal wife who has mental health issues. And within 2 weeks, so 5 weeks in total, including the coma, since that very evening, Julia's kids are taken away from her. A judge rules her to be an unfit mother and that she must only see her children whilst she's supervised. Mike gets complete custody. Now, Julia's lawyer, he does appeal this, and he writes the most brilliant letter to the judge who's making the decision, and he says, look, he says the decision is based on her supposedly shooting herself, but there was no gunshot wound. The whole thing is ridiculous. He brings up in the letter to the judge that Mike has been cheating and was texting his girlfriend the night that this happened. He says the notebook with which she kept details of the divorce that she wanted was found with pages missing on the very day this happened. He says to the judge in his letter, the circumstances around this case have been compromised, covered up, and manipulated to suit Mike, and the police are a part of that. The judge ignores the letter, and Julia has to move out of the home. The investigation into Mike is dropped. The story gets reported as Julia, young mother, tries to take her own life. Julia sees her sons once a week with Mike supervising, and she finds it incredibly hard to talk about the loss of not seeing her children every single day. So when I started this story, I told you that I had to change the names. And that's because when this story was heard by different journalists, they reached out to Julia and to Mike and they tried to get to the real story. What actually led to her lying near death in a closet in her home, a locked closet in her home, when she wasn't dead. His uncle was pronouncing her dead. I mean, it's just so fucked up. But those people were very quickly shut down. They were threatened with legal action if they talked any more about the story. But there are just so many weird bits of it. I also think, for me, what really jumped out when I was thinking about it is, how come Julia can remember everything else except the events of that night beyond the shower argument? Who's making her be quiet? So, as it stands, Mike is still a police officer. His uncle remains the sheriff. And Julia remains a mother who sees her kids once a week under supervision. And so ends the story. Alright then, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you liked that little tale of weirdness. It's very fucking weird, isn't it? Very, very bloody bizarre. Yeah, lots going on in there. Lots of corruption, lots of cover-ups. So yeah. If you want to get in touch about the story, please do. It would be lovely to hear from you. If you want to get in touch in general, just to say hello, you can. Where can you do it? Well, you can do it through Facebook. Join the Facebook group. It's fucking wonderful. You can email me, extraordinarystoriespodcast@gmail.com, Instagram, Twitter, all your usual socials, all your places that you would ever find anyone. I'm there. I'm hanging about on those. Okay, so it's been bloody lovely to tell you a story. So, really hope you've liked it. Great, brilliant. As always, a rubbish sign off. So sorry about how rubbish my sign off is, but you know, just let's all take a deep breath. Don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. Brilliant. Okay, until the next episode. Okay, goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.